Hello and welcome back. EU ministers are proposing a coordinated control plan lasting 1 month as they try and contain the widening crisis surrounding mislabeled horse meat in some supposedly beef products. Well, some German supermarkets actually withdrew beef lasagna products today over the back of those kind of concerns that may or may not be what they appear to be. So the scandal now encompasses all sorts of countries, including Switzerland, Sweden, the United Kingdom, Ireland, France, Romania and the Netherlands as well. But let's take a look at the links in this rogue food chain and, as I was saying, how exactly some of these products were labelled what it turned out they weren't. Now, starting out with things like this. In January, as you can see here, food safety authorities in Ireland reported that some supermarket products had actually labelled minced beef the products that were labelled as minced beef actually contained horse. 9 out of 10 of those burgers that they tested contained some form of horse meat, it seemed, and samples of lasagna subsequently, we're talking about lasagna that was made by a Swedish company called Findus, contained between 60 and 100% horse meat. Irish officials actually blamed ingredients coming from Poland, and what we saw was Findus, the maker of that kind of lasagna, which was supplied by this company, comm over there in northeastern France. This is a firm that makes similar products for food suppliers and retailers right across 16 countries. The products in particular that contained horse meat, as I was saying, were made by comm, but not actually in France. They were made actually in Luxembourg. Findus is also blaming a Romanian company here, a supplier there, and it says it's taking legal action against that business for allowing horse meat to get into the food chain in the first place. But if we go back to comm, this frozen foods plant in particular, it says that the meat actually came from a delivery that it took from a trader in Cyprus, which had actually subcontracted the order over to the Netherlands, and now the investigation seems to be coming back towards the United Kingdom because the UK is investigating its own suppliers. British authorities actually recently just raided and closed 2 operations, and the EU's Health Commissioner, Tonio Borg, says that the European Commission is working with all its governments involved to get to the bottom of this kind of scandal. Take a listen.
If anyone distributes and circulates meat products as beef when it is not beef, then that is in violation of legislation.
Retailers, I think, do bear a real responsibility here. At the end of the day, it is they who are putting products on their shelves and have got to say that they're really clear about where that meat came from, what it was, who it was supplied by. It's up to them to test that.
I'm joined now by our senior international correspondent, Nick Robertson, who's been following the latest on this. So, the last thing we've heard in the last half hour or so, Nick, is that obviously Brussels is taking some pretty severe action of its own. It's not just the UK.
No, they're talking about a series of tests, 2 types of tests to be conducted over the next 30 days and then probably to be extended over a period of 3 months. The tests to be DNA tests. One of them is to be a DNA test that will test for the DNA of horse meat. He's saying, the Health Commissioner for the European Union is saying 2,500 tests across all the European states in that first 30-day period, and also 4,000 testing for phenylbutazone, which is a chemical that is to treat fever in horses, which is not something that can be used in humans. So these are the principal tests.
Yeah, it causes severe anemia, doesn't it, in humans, and other worrying side effects. But I suppose this is the issue. It's not, is it a food safety issue? Is it a labelling issue? Is it a mislabelling of the horse meat, or just the fact that all sorts of things are getting into supposedly beef products anyway?
You know, what's really interesting today is before they got going with this meeting in Brussels today, the Health Commissioner said categorically, this is not a health issue. However, when we listened to him after the meeting, these are health tests that he's making. He said that it's a labelling issue, that there's legislation in Europe to prevent this type of thing happening, but clearly, he said, either fraudulently or negligently, these laws are being broken. It's up to the individual nations, member nations, to press charges and to enforce those laws. But that's where he laid the blame of the problem, labelling, not health. But clearly now we see these are health tests.
Yeah, they certainly are. And the other issue we should mention is that from a religious point of view, we're now finding out that some products that Waitrose has been selling are found to have contained not horse meat, but actually pork.
And we're seeing how it's affecting these companies. Waitrose is talking about now exclusively using a facility that it's already had in England to produce all its meat products exclusively. It's sort of closing down its sort of trust, if you will, to one facility, one company. Yes, it's shocking consumers, and that's why we're seeing people like Waitrose move quickly to rebuild that confidence, because trust, as we know, easily lost but hard to rebuild.
It certainly is. When it comes to who's going to pay for all of this, so eventually if governments across the European Union decide that these companies should routinely test the content of all sorts of meat products and test further down the supply chain, somebody's going to have to foot the bill. We're getting awfully used to cheap food around the EU.
It's going to be the taxpayers, isn't it? What we've heard from the Commissioner, what we heard from the Health Commissioner today say about the tests that the European Union, he as the Health Commissioner, is proposing and that are being discussed, 15% of the cost of the test, he said, would be paid by the European Union. Each test, he said, cost about €400. 15% is a small slice of that 2,500 tests, perhaps multiplied longer over months, the 4,000 other tests. This number builds up. There's going to be a cost, and without doubt it will end up somehow in the consumer's pocket, tax member states.
Better in their pocket than in their stomach, perhaps one might say. Nick Robertson, thanks ever so much for that here in our London studio. Now, time to bring